Chuck! You can't meet the moment! Step down, 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 Chuck! You can't meet the moment!
What's good? Today, I'm in Brooklyn, in Prospect Park, because earlier there were a bunch of angry protesters right outside of Chuck Schumer's house, which is right there.
This is a coup! Make no mistake! This is a coup! Make no mistake!
We were here earlier with a very, very large crowd of about 300 people to demand that Senator Schumer step down as the minority leader of the Senate. And we are asking him to do that right now because he made a terrible, terrible decision last week to support the GOP continuing resolution bill to continue to fund the government.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer initially opposed the Trump-backed bill before switching and moving it forward.
And after a week of standoffs, Senate Minority Leader Democrat Chuck Schumer says he will now vote in favor of the Republican stopgap bill. He explained why on the Senate floor.
The message he sent to us was like, I am not here to protect you. I am not here to protect the people of the United States against the fascist regime in the White House.
We're here to really stop the coup, the Trump coup. And it's something that he's doing 2 protests a day. I'm doing 3 a week. And so it has to come from the street. It's not coming from leaders. Schumer failed, and we're actually here to ask Schumer to resign.
Do you think Chuck Schumer's going to resign?
That's to be seen, right? But we have to keep asking for what we want and need.
Look, I'm not stepping down.
Since his vote in favor of the continuing resolution and since this protest, Schumer has made it resoundingly clear that he has no plans to resign. Given the nauseating speed of the modern news cycle, Schumer's capitulation to the Republican Party has almost entirely fallen out of the current political discourse. Regardless, the effects of his decision will reverberate for years to come, as this funding bill functionally paves a path for Trump and Musk's master plan.
This Republican extreme spending bill removes all of the guardrails and all of the accountability measures to ensure that money is being spent in the way that Congress has directed for it to be spent. This turns the federal government into a slush fund for Donald Trump and Elon Musk. It sacrifices congressional authority, and it is deeply partisan.
Many, such as AOC, have asserted that the lack of detailed spending directives gives the executive branch discretion to spend money in whatever ways they want. Unlike typical funding bills, the final say over how much of the money is spent is left to the executive, granting extreme flexibility to the president. This is something that might come in handy for an administration that is trying to gut most federal agencies as we speak.
Clean energy investments could become a payday for fossil fuels. Money meant to stop fentanyl and opioids could fuel private prison operators and Trump's mass deportations. This bill will let them pick which Army Corps, which transit, which military construction projects move ahead, and which grind to a halt.
Simultaneously, the bill features some very explicit cuts to government programs that people rely on. A cut on rental assistance will put 32,000 households at risk of eviction, and cuts to the Emergency Food Assistance Program might reduce access to affordable food for certain families. There was a clear alternative for what the Democrats could have done, and most people assumed that Schumer was in on the plan. Given the 60-vote requirement to make the bill filibuster-proof, Republicans needed the cooperation of multiple Democrats in order to get the bill passed. Democrats could have leveraged this fact to demand concessions out of the Republicans. Hanging the threat of a government shutdown over the majority party would have given the Democrats much strength in making sure the bill didn't give Trump more power than he already has. For many Democrats, the plan was to push for a very short-term continuing resolution, only to avoid a shutdown while both parties negotiated a more agreeable path forward.
House Democrats have laid out a plan, as well as several Senate Democrats laid out a plan to keep government open for another 30 days as Republicans negotiate a deal with Democrats in order to have an extended government funding bill.
But the House would have to come back into session, right?
But House Democrats are in town. We're afraid of working? Is that the problem here?
Schumer apparently didn't like these ideas, so he chose to vote for cloture, allowing the bill through Congress without a filibuster. As he has asserted ad nauseum in interviews since he made his decision, a government shutdown would apparently give Trump and Musk the power to permanently close whatever agencies they wanted. In order to curtail this, Schumer saw the funding bill as the only viable option.
You have these fanatics, these anti-government, vicious nihilists in charge. They can say anything. Anything is not essential. So it could have been today if we were in the shutdown, they said, feeding hungry children, not essential, eliminate SNAP. So within 2 weeks, they could just so decimate the federal government, almost throwing a bomb at it, that we could never recover. And wait, one more thing that's worse. There's no exit ramp. In other words, how do you get out of the shutdown? Solely up to the executive branch.
Schumer's reasoning, though, does not make much sense. As we speak, Trump's administration is actively laying off thousands of workers across multiple federal agencies, effectively shutting down the government on his own accord. Schumer's vote for this bill forfeits all of his party's leverage while simultaneously allowing Trump to shut the government down anyways. Trump himself expressed a clear opposition to a shutdown, going so far as to congratulate Schumer for voting to keep the government open. The threat of a shutdown loomed so large that Trump even threatened to primary Republican Congressman Thomas Massie for voting against the CR. Among Trump's opposition, nearly everyone was on board with leveraging the shutdown as a negotiation tactic. Everett Kelly, the president of the American Federation of Government Employees, the union that represents almost all federal workers, stated outright that a shutdown was preferable to the continuing resolution. As he put it, with thousands of federal workers either fired, placed on administrative leave, or at immediate risk of losing their jobs, AFGE members have concluded that a widespread government shutdown has been underway since January 20th and will continue to spread whether senators vote yes or no on the CR. Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader who has faced accusations of being soft on resisting Trump himself, managed to whip all but one member of his caucus against the continuing resolution. The unity and cohesive vision of almost everyone throws Schumer's decision into even deeper question. Schumer's long-term game plan, as has been the plan of Democrats for decades at this point, is seemingly to sit back and do nothing. He stated this clearly in a recent interview for the New York Times.
Last time he was president, we kept pushing and pushing and pushing and chipping away. And when he went below 40% in the polls, the Republican legislators started working with us. He was at 51. He's now at 48. We're going to keep at it until he goes below 40.
Schumer's plan to let the Republican fever break, which is a claim Democrats have been making forever, offers an easy way to win elections by tiny margins only after Republicans habitually destabilize the country. With Democrats facing historically low approval ratings, though, there are signs that this plan might not work the way it used to.
68%, and look at the approved number, just 21%, even lower than the Democratic Party at large. This is the lowest on record for Democrats, according to Quinnipiac University polling.
Part of the problem lies in the political vision of leaders like Schumer. In his interview with the New York Times, he said that Democrats have a good policy and vision. They just lack the communication skills to outflank Republicans. Chuck Schumer recently said in an interview that the Democrats don't have a policy problem, they just have a communications problem. Do you think that's true?
That's garbage.
Absolute garbage. And it doesn't it's meaningless.
It doesn't add up.
I mean, they definitely have a communications problem. Democrats have historically been terrible at communicating.
We have a policy problem with his allowing Israel to receive all of the funds it does for arms and for colonialism in the West Bank and in Gaza, and Chuck Schumer is a big advocate of that.
Where do you think are the shortcomings with Democratic policy?
I think they don't fight hard enough. They want to just sit back and wait for the Republicans to implode, which I don't think is the right message to send people like me.
In spite of Schumer's self-proclaimed self-awareness, the truth is that Democrats have put up minimal resistance to the Trump administration since January 20th. The minority party has many tools at its disposal to slow or prevent the legislative plans of the majority, and the Democrats have been using close to none of the tools thus far. As of right now, only Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Cory Booker, out of all people, have gone as far as to put up a visible resistance. Today, it feels as if the Democrats have given up and allowed themselves to get outflanked by grassroots opposition and primary election threats. How do you guys feel about Hakeem Jeffries?
Hakeem Jeffries seems to be.
He is too passive. He is way too passive.
How do you guys feel about Hakeem Jeffries?
Not very good. I mean, he's about power. He's not about leading. He's not a leader of anything.
Historically, Hakeem Jeffries has not been easy to work with and has not been very open to, we meet with his staff occasionally, but it's always a real struggle to make that happen.
He's very intelligent, but he's not forceful enough, and he speaks the language, again, of elitism.
And I'm not even sure that he certainly doesn't speak for his constituency. He's much too passive.
Right. And I've given up my Democratic, with a capital D, registration.
One notable thing I observed at this protest was the age of everybody. Looking around, the average age was pretty high. Right now, there are almost weekly protests that pop up across New York City, but this one felt particularly older than the rest. To me, it seems as though the lack of coverage and the short-lived media attention on Schumer's situation led many young people to forget about it and not show up to fight. The protest occurred on the 23rd of March, which was over a week after the original news broke about Schumer's decision. Since then, the media has gone on to focus on other issues, such as the Houthi war group chat leak, ICE detainments, and tariffs. It feels like, at least for the moment, much of the criticism of the Democratic Party has fallen out of media discourse, and Chuck Schumer is back to business as usual, coming out once a week to criticize Republicans at a press conference.
I think people voted for Donald Trump for a reason. And I think the Democrats failed to come up with a vision that could attract the working class, the middle class, and, in lieu of any kind of real policy vision, that Donald Trump filled that vacuum.
Before ending, it's important to point out the other reason Schumer has been going on a media tour amidst all this.
Well, it's wonderful to have you. We are going to talk about your book, Anti-Semitism in America, A Warning, in just a moment.
Just as news broke about the decision, Schumer was gearing up to publish a new book on anti-Semitism in America. Even in his interviews, where he had to defend himself against criticism around his decision, he spent a lot of time trying to promote his book. Can you tell me about the timing of Chuck Schumer planning on going on a book tour right as all this is happening?
It's gross. That's what it is.
That was extremely insensitive, obviously, extremely out of touch, and
just plain stupid.
Pretty much stupid.
It's like he's so out of touch with real people.
This comes at an awkward time, not only because of his support of the continuing resolution, but also because students and protesters are being detained and disappeared left and right, all under the pretext of being anti-Semitic. Schumer's unwavering commitment to Zionism during a time like this reminds us that even those who claim to fight for working people might often put other priorities before ours. Do you think Democrats accurately represent the working class?
No.
For Chuck Schumer to even take notice of this is a stretch.
The Democratic Party in general and the people who are leading it are beholden to their donors, and that's who they, clearly that's who they're paying more attention to than the people who they actually represent. And that's how we got in the position that we are in.
I think it's squarely in the hands of Democrats to offer something that the American people feel is going to work for everyone, not just for the wealthy few.